At first, Eivin Kilcher looked like he had everything, was free, had a loving family, and lived a life most people only dream about. But as time went on, something changed. Fans of Alaska, the last frontier, started seeing he wasn't around as much. He seemed quieter, and his whole vibe was different. What began as little signs slowly became too big to miss. The more you dig, the more it seems like something bigger was going on. He was burned out, really stressed, cued, and quietly falling apart way before anyone knew it. Born on March 6, 1983. Eivin Kilcher is part of the third group of kids to grow up on his family's tough homestead just outside Homer, Alaska. The homestead was first built in the Alaskan wild back in the 1940s by his grandparents, Eivin and Ruth Kilcher, who made an amazing trip from Switzerland to Alaska, chasing a dream of freedom and simple living. Eivin Kilcher was born in Switzerland in 1913. Even when he was a teenager, he loved exploring. His first trip to Alaska was in 1936, and he instantly fell in love with the wild land. By 1940, he had come back to stay there forever. A year later, Ruth Helen Weber came to join him. She was trained as an opera singer. Ruth married Yogis. 3 days after getting to Alaska, the government gave Yul 160 acres, as long as he lived on it, built something, and grew crops. In 1944, Yul and Ruth moved to an old fox farm outside Homer. Their life was as tough as it gets. No electricity, no running water, and just a one-room cabin to live in. It wasn't until 1952 that electricity finally came to the homestead. Yul and Ruth raised 8 children, including Otto and Ants. That same creative spirit naturally passed down to Eivin. Life on the homestead meant learning how to make do with what you had from the start. While most kids were imagining adventures, Eivin was living one every day, surrounded by Alaska's wild beauty. One of his first times being independent came when he was just a kid. Maybe around 8 or 10, his dad gave him the keys to a 1983 Subaru and taught him how to drive. The lesson was unusual. Keep it in gear, steer, and if you're about to crash into something, turn off the car. That's it. It's just Eivin and a whole lot of trust from his father. At just 15, Eivin made his first big purchase, a beat-up 1986 Subaru he bought from his dad for $700. It didn't run, but fixing it became his first real jump into learning about cars. To pay for it, he worked hard around the homestead, doing whatever jobs needed doing. In his 20s, instead of going to college, Eivin chose a different path. He spent summers fighting wildfires and used his winters to travel around the world. Of his most memorable adventures came at 22, when he and a close friend traveled across Indonesia by motorcycle. Starting in Bali, they rode over 2,000 kilometers east, jumping from island to island. The freedom and beautiful views left a lasting impression, but not every moment was perfect. On the island of Flores, a bad crash left his friend with a badly burned leg. The scariest moment came one night while riding through huge rice fields in complete darkness. Rain was pouring and lightning was cracking all around them. They tucked in behind a big truck, using it like a lightning shield. Despite being scared, it's one of Eivin's most treasured memories, back home in Alaska. Eivin built his life on the same land his grandfather once settled. He started with just one cabin and slowly expanded it into a full homestead. And he wasn't alone. His partner through it all has been Eve. Eve and Eivin's story goes back to when they were kids. They both grew up on neighboring farms near the Kilcher homestead. They graduated high school together in 2001, and what started as friendship eventually turned into love. In August of 2011, they got married in a nature's-themed ceremony, while Eivin focuses on building and hunting. Eve is the steady force behind the homestead's amazing garden. Alaska's growing season is really short, barely 4 months. But Eve makes every day count. When harvest time comes, She's there, canning, preserving, and preparing for the long, harsh winter. But what they didn't see coming was the outside world, ready to change everything. Discovery Channel eventually found the Kilcher family. A producer reached out to Ian through Facebook, hoping to see if the family would be interested in being on a reality show. And just like that, Alaska, the last frontier, was born. The show focused on multiple members of the Kilcher family. Cameras followed them through their daily routines, all centered around homestead life. Each summer, they worked on 3 important jobs to prepare for the brutal Alaskan winter: stockpiling firewood, winterproofing their homes, and getting enough food. The series started on December 29th, 2011. The very first season had just 3 episodes, but it made a strong impression. With the show's popularity growing, Discovery brought it back in October 2012 with a full 15-episode season. Ian, who joined the series right at the beginning, quickly became a fan favorite. It took him some time to get used to being on camera, but he grew to love the chance the show gave him to teach others about sustainability and self-reliant living. Fans regularly came up to the Kilchers, saying the show had inspired them to build a backyard, chicken coops, or start vegetable gardens. Part of what draws viewers in is the big difference between their own lives and the wilderness the Kilchers call home. While most people navigate city streets and constant noise, the Kilchers live in a place where nature sets the pace and civilization feels worlds away. That down-to-earth lifestyle eventually inspired a new project. Lee and Eve released a cookbook in 2016 called Homestead Kitchen. The cookbook isn't just a list of meals, it's a peek into their way of life. It's filled with personal stories and family photos that highlight their deep love for Homestead. In a memorable 2017 episode, fans got a closer look at one of Eivin Kilcher's coolest builds, his custom boat, the Fair North Rose. This was a 32.5-foot-long, 10-foot-wide landing craft built for serious Alaskan adventures, with twin 225-horsepower outboard motors. This thing had plenty of muscle to cut through rough waters. Around the same time, took on a passion project restoring a mid-giant's Spuru Brat. This was the car Ian had dreamed about owning since he was a kid. The Brat became a standout on the homestead for both its looks and practicality. Then came 2019. Alaska, the last frontier, delivered one of its most unforgettable moments. Brothers Ian and Levi Kilcher took on a cliffside climb that looked like something out of a movie. They had ropes and helmets, but it was still a nail-biting moment. The brothers were on a mission to reach a new hunting ground that could help put food on the table for the entire Kilcher family. During the climb, they studied the towering wall in front of them, one they had bolted over a decade earlier. Some of the bolts were still holding strong, but others had rusted. They'd never made it to the top back then, but now they were determined to finish what they started and reach the high-altitude terrain known as goat country. Outside of these wild adventures, Eivin Kilcher wears many hats. Over the years, he's worked as a reality TV personality, a writer, a firefighter, a machinist, and a welder. But at his core, Ian is all about the subsistence lifestyle. He's out tracking moose, bear, and deer, or fishing for salmon, halibut, and trout. Gathers clams, mussels, berries, seaweed, and mushrooms, always respecting every living thing he harvests. His wife, Eve, brings her strengths to the table. She's all about foraging, gardening, and preserving the food they grow and gather. Together, Ian and Eve are a modern-day team, putting a fresh spin on the old-school ways of living off the land. Despite their off-grid lifestyle, they stay connected with fans through social media, regularly posting updates, family moments, behind the scenes, looks at life on the homestead. As of late 2022, Eve began offering personalized copies of her cookbook, hinting at a possible shift toward writing full-time and maybe even stepping back a little from reality TV.